Howdy y'all. Jurassic Park, one of the greatest blockbusters of all time. A film that changed the industry with its groundbreaking special effects that, for the most part, have still held up incredibly well to this very day. It has great characters that you actually care for. It tells a story that sucks you right into the action, being entertaining while also being a warning as to what can happen when humanity tries to take control of forces beyond its limited understanding. Dinosaurs have been dead for millions of years, and they shouldn't be brought back just because there's some money to be made off of them. And then a fraction of the cast was brought back for the sequel because Jurassic Park was a gigantic success and there was some money to be made. I will defend The Lost World to my dying day as being a perfectly decent film. Not great like Jurassic Park, and there's way too many stupid character moments for me to call it good, but it is a decent movie, an enjoyable flick that I find myself watching every now and again. It's one of the better, pointless sequels out there. Granted, I know that's not a glowing recommendation, but still, it's better than most people say it is. With all that said, Jurassic Park 3 is every bit as bad as people say it is. This film is a pure waste of time that's biggest defense is the fact that it knows it's a waste of time. Clocking in at only an hour and 30 minutes, a paltry runtime compared to its predecessors. I know some people out there claim that this makes the movie better than The Lost World by default, because it's so much shorter, but I have to disagree. Just saying, you don't see anybody trying to defend Quantum of Solace with that same excuse. Probably the best thing about Jurassic Park 3 is the fact that it was the final entry. The characters left the island for one last time, never to return, marking the end of the series. For a whole 14 years. Oh, Jurassic World! A world is bigger than a park must mean this film is bigger than better than the original. That's how that works. Disney World is grander than Disneyland. I assume anyway. I've never been to either locations. But anyway, that same logic must apply here. It's kinda insane to think that Jurassic World came out 10 years ago. I saw it in theaters when I was still too young to really realize if a movie was good or not, so I really liked it at the time. I got it on DVD soon after and watched it at home and then never watched it again. For nearly an entire decade, Jurassic World sat on my media shelf, untouched for years, only being budged when I would re-watch one of the first two movies. I like to think that even way back then, there was some part of my underdeveloped brain that told me that this movie wasn't worth my time. But anyway, with the film's 10th anniversary coming up, if not already past depending on how quick I'm able to make this video, I say it's time to give it a rewatch. To see if it's a worthy addition to the franchise, or if it's a petrified piece of dino dung that should have never been released. I think you know what the answer is gonna be. Chapter 1. Story. After an undetermined amount of time since the original trilogy, Jurassic Park has finally overcome its technical difficulties and has opened up to the public, renamed to Jurassic World to distance itself from the old park's tainted legacy. Yeah, just change the second word in the name, don't bother to change the font or the logo. How much you want to bet they only changed it because they couldn't get clearance to use the original name? Anyways, the higher-ups at the park, seeing that the younger generation has grown bored with dinosaurs, have decided to create a brand new, bigger and better dinosaur to kick up the sales of the park, naming their creation the Indominus Rex. Meanwhile, on the mainland, a loving and caring mother ships her two young kids away by themselves so that they can spend a nice little getaway at Jurassic World with her sister Claire, who is the operations manager of the park. She does this purely to get her children out of the way so that she and her soon-to-be ex-husband can deal with their divorce proceedings. And just like how they were shoved off by their parents, the kids are swiftly shoved off by their aunt as well, ending up in the care of a British nanny, truly a fate worse than death. Back at base, the park runners make the horrifying discovery that their newly designed dinosaur has escaped from her pen. Claire speeds off. For some reason, a dinosaur specialist, Owen Grady, goes inside of the pen with a few handlers to examine something. And then they come to the even more horrifying discovery that the Indominus Rex actually hasn't escaped from her pen, and now the three men are standing next to the most dangerous animal in the world. The men hightail it out of there, accidentally letting the dinosaur escape behind them. And from there, it is a non-stop mission to stop the dangerous beast from wreaking havoc. The Indominus tramples past everything they toss her way, drawing closer and closer to the heart of the park with every step. Running out of time and ideas, the park officials allow this guy to run with his idea of using the velociraptors as weapons to kill the Indominus Rex. The plan soon backfires, however, as the Indominus communicates with the raptors, turning them against their human companions. A titanic battle erupts with the Indominus, a loyal raptor named Blue, and the T-Rex that the film has teased throughout its runtime. A admittedly pretty cool fight scene plays out, ending with the Indominus Rex being killed by the Chekhov's Gunnosaurus. The T-Rex lets out a mighty roar over the mountainside as the movie fades to black. I find it a little odd how the film closes on the T-Rex, seeing how she was in it for all of 5 minutes. Like, get out of the way, this is not your movie, don't steal Blue's spotlight. But I digress, I'm just glad to see the credits roll. Chapter 2. Before I get too mean. Okay, I wanted to list off some things I liked here. First off, this movie has some surprisingly smart self-commentary. At the start of the film, Claire explains to investors that kids today are used to seeing dinosaurs. They were groundbreaking at one point, but now the younger generation has grown up with them existing, so they're no longer surprised to see them, thus making the park feel stale. Which is why they decide to do something completely new and different with the Indominus Rex, trying to spice up the place to gather bigger crowds. This is essentially the film speaking directly to the audience saying, yeah, we know the series has overstayed its welcome. We know that the at one point revolutionary CGI is now in every movie you watch, so we're gonna try and do something different this time. It's on the nose, yeah, but I honestly kinda like it. You so rarely see any Hollywood film attempt self-commentary like this. It's surprisingly clever. The only thing bad about it is that it's too good for the movie. It lures you into thinking that this film might actually try something different, only for it to essentially do the same thing that we've already seen with a few more bells and whistles. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Another thing I like here was an interaction with the park's owner and Henry Wu, the main scientist over the park and also the only character making a return from the original movie. The owner chews Wu out, condoning him for creating the Indominus Rex, creating something that's so unnatural, only for Wu to say this in return.
Nothing in Jurassic World is natural. If their genetic code was pure, many of them would look quite different.
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of been a known thing for a while that the dinosaurs featured in the series don't even come close to what they look like in real life. Now, to be fair, these were highly accurate depictions of the animals as they were understood back in 1993. Most of them anyway. Even Spielberg knew he was fudging the numbers with the Velociraptor. And I think it's pretty neat how Jurassic World acknowledges this fact. It's also just a nice interaction between the two characters aside from that, with the owner chewing Wu out for creating such a horrid beast, and Wu rightfully pointing out that he only did what he told him to do. And yeah, the rest of the trilogy made some choices with Henry Wu, but I like his inclusion here. It gives this movie some much needed continuity to the first film in a way that makes sense. I fully buy the fact that Jurassic World would rehire Wu to help them make some more dinosaurs. I mean, really, where else are you going to find someone that knows how to do that? Do I have anything else nice to say? Nope? Good. Now on to Chapter 3. Missing the point. The very fact that this reboot features the island being open to the public unintentionally goes against everything that the first movie was trying to say. Jurassic Park made it clear that we cannot control forces beyond our understanding, and trying to do so will only result in misery. At its heart, it's essentially telling the audience, don't play God. Except now it's totally fine to play God and control forces beyond our understanding. We got it under control as long as we don't play God too much, I guess. You see how this completely muddles the point of the original movie, right? It's made even worse by the fact that this film tries to tell that same message, but it rings as especially hollow here, because they did have it under control. They genetically modified an entire park's worth of dinosaurs and stayed in operation for what can be assumed to be a considerable amount of time. They played God and won the game. They only tripped up when they flew too close to the sun and created a dinosaur that they had no realistic way of stopping. The message is no longer don't play God. The message is don't be stupid when you're playing God. Chapter 4. The Legal Nightmare of Jurassic World. I'm not even talking about the lawsuits that the park would have been flooded with after the film's end. I'm talking about how unsafe this place is as a whole. Look at this part. You have people in kayaks less than a yard away from the dinosaurs, without any sort of barrier or guardrail. Even zoos don't let you get this close to any of their animals. I don't care if they're herbivores or not. They could accidentally turn too fast and knock somebody's head off with their tail. And of course later you have the infamous hamster ball scene, where the park's guests are allowed to freely go wherever they want inside of these glass balls. This is monumentally stupid. There is no way you could guarantee the safety of the guests, or the animals for that matter, with these devices. And when I say they're allowed to go wherever they want, I really mean wherever they want. The kids freely wander into a restricted area. I honestly don't think there are any boundaries set in place for this thing. And worse yet, they don't have an e-stop. The park has no way to call the vehicles back in the event of an emergency. All they can do is politely ask the guests to return. Whoever designed it like that had way too much faith in humanity. But then that got me thinking, how exactly does the park call them back in the first place? Surely this is a ride with time limits for the guests, right? I highly doubt the way this works is that the guests are free to roam for as long as they please. What, is this like based on the honor system? Do they just hope the guest will return after their time is up? Again, way too much faith in humanity. And don't even get me started on the kids. Actually, you know what? Chapter 5. The kids suck. The two appetizers here have no purpose in the story. They're really only here to serve as MacGuffins for the adult characters, giving a reason for why Claire and Owen would toss themselves into harm's way in order to save the little twerps. The children in the first film were so much more than this. Without them, Dr. Grant would never have had his character arc of, you know, learning to not hate kids. They were practically the heart of the original movie, and in the end, it's one of them that saves the day by properly rebooting the park. Without Lex doing that, they wouldn't have been able to call the helicopters to get off the island. Here though, the kids do nothing for the plot. Again, the only real purpose they have is to get lost, so that Owen and Claire can try to save them. To be fair, it's not like they're stupid or anything. They're able to fend for themselves pretty alright, and they're not annoying, which is a definite plus, but still, they have no real point. It's kinda impossible to not feel like this movie only had 2 young kids because the first film had 2 young kids, which is just pathetic. One scene I have to bring up with them in particular is when they ignore the call to come back and wander off into the restricted area. Now, I'm not going to blame this movie for showing the kids doing something stupid. This is the exact type of thing that a teenager would do. Which is why boundaries are important, but I digress. They're swiftly attacked by the Indominus Rex, and it's here that I couldn't help but remember just how good the child actors were in the original movie. Let me play you a few side-by-side clips so that you know what I'm talking about. In the former, the kids are legitimately screaming their hearts out, selling the fact that they're in mortal danger. And in the latter, you have one that looks like he can't even be asked to pretend that there is a dinosaur in front of him. And while the other is actually screaming, his screaming is so noticeably held back that it just completely takes you out of the scene. Almost as if he's not in danger or anything and is just in the relative safety of a Hollywood studio. It's not helped either by the fact that his scream is very noticeably low in the audio mix. Seriously, why is it like that? It's almost like they were trying to wash out his screams so that the audience wouldn't notice how fake they were. Now, to be fair, I don't really blame the actors here. I consider this more of a problem of them not being given proper direction, because throughout the rest of the film, they're honestly pretty good in their respective roles. I want to make that clear right now. Even though I have my problems with the children, the actors themselves did do a good job. Chapter 6. The reason for why the kids are here sucks. Okay, this is in its own chapter because it doesn't really retain to the kids per se, but to their parents. I already mentioned it in the summary, but the kids are only on the island in the first place because their mother wants them to have one last great vacation before the divorce is settled. By the way, they're keeping this from the kids. Imagine if everything had gone to plan. The kids have a lovely time at Jurassic World only to come back home to this.
Children, your father and I are going to divorce.
I think they would have gotten whiplash from the sudden change of emotions. Thank goodness the Indominus escaped, that way the divorce doesn't seem as bad in comparison. Okay, getting back to the topic, it's because of their divorce that the mother sends them off to her sister, Claire. Claire, obviously not having the time to look after them, has them hang out with a hired nanny instead. And then the mother tries to guilt trip Claire for not abandoning her duties at the park and hanging out with her kids on their vacation. I swear I get so frustrated watching this scene. Lady, it's not like your sister is the assistant manager of a Walmart or something. She's the operations manager of a park filled with dinosaurs. It's not like she can just take extended hour-long breaks to escort your children around the exhibits. And this is all especially rich coming from you, seeing how you pushed them off to her in the first place. Don't be mad that she pushed them off to someone else because, you know, she's running the park. I swear, this is made even more frustrating by the fact that the divorce doesn't even matter. I kid you not, it affects the plot so little that it's like the movie itself forgets about it. Sure, early on you have a scene of the kids worried about what a divorce would mean, but that's the last time it's brought up in the film. I kid you not when I say that these two getting divorced is so unimportant to the plot that you could cut it out from the film entirely, and the only thing that would have changed is that there would have been less melodrama. Chapter 7. Writing romance is hard. On the topic of relationships, I want to bring up the movie's romantic leads, Owen and Claire. They're a couple, I think. They have counted them, two scenes where that is implied. One where they sporadically kiss after Claire rescues Owen from being attacked by some pterodactyls. And at the end of the movie, they walk into the sunset together. Other than that, though, they have all the chemistry of pouring water and oil into the same glass. Outside of them stating the fact that they used to date sometime in the past, nothing about them says that they could be a couple. So their kiss in the middle of the film really comes out of nowhere. And in the end, when they walk away, all I can do is give a polite shrug and hope that they develop some kind of bond in the future, because I sure didn't see one on display here. I swear, their relationship feels so forced. It feels like this movie only made them a couple because Hollywood movies tend to have couples. It's especially weird here because it's not like the series was known for having romance anyway. Sure, the first 3 movies had love interests, but there was never any romantic scenes in them. And in the case of the first film, the relationship of Grant and Sadler is so underplayed that a lot of people were confused about whether or not they were a couple in the first place. Here though, the romance is written in such a clumsy way it's making me ask why they were a couple in the first place. Chapter 8. Impossible Jeep. There's a sequence in this film where the kids wander into the remains of the visitor center from the original Jurassic Park, left abandoned for 20 years, completely overgrown by the surrounding forest. It's very clear that the movie wants the audience to drop their popcorn and shout, "I remember that place!" It's very obviously included just for the sake of fan service, which I'm okay with, honestly. It doesn't overstay its welcome, so I can't really be mad at it. What I can be mad at is when the kids fix up a Jeep that has been sitting for over 20 years in the middle of the forest just by replacing its battery. Now, this right here has been made fun of by literally everyone that has watched this movie. You don't have to be a car expert to know that that Jeep ain't going nowhere anytime soon. It is nothing more than a really dirty paperweight now. Put simply, nostalgia gets in the way of the story here. The movie so desperately wanted the kids to drive one of the original Jeeps that they didn't care how stupid it was. But again, everyone has already talked about this, so I'll leave it at that. Chapter 9. Everyone is dumb. Okay, I don't really have a way to transition to this, but I just have to talk about the scene where the Indominus Rex breaks out of her pen, because it is nothing but one concentrated moment of pure stupidity on the parts of the characters. First off, the Indominus tricks everyone into thinking she has already escaped by camouflaging herself and lowering her body heat. And for some reason, Henry Wu never told them that she could camouflage. And he somehow didn't know that she could lower her body heat. I find this frustratingly dumb because this is a mistake that this character has already made before. In the first movie, Wu oversaw the creation of all the dinosaurs. It was him that mixed their DNA with frog DNA, making it possible for them to breed. You think after messing up like that, he would be a bit more cautious about what animal DNA he puts into the Indominus Rex, right? Right? Okay, to be fair, there was never a scene in the first film of him finding out about that mistake. For all we know, he never found out that the dinosaurs were breeding in the first film, so I guess I'll let that slide. What I will not let slide, however, is Claire racing away in her brand new head-turning Mercedes-Benz towards the headquarters. While trying to call headquarters to see if they could locate the Indominus Rex via her tracking device. It's kinda impossible to not watch this scene and ask, why didn't Claire just call them from the Indominus pen instead? Well, you see, if she did that, then she would have found out that the Indominus Rex was still inside of her cell right there, and she would have been able to stop Owen and his crew from wandering into her enclosure. If it was not for her extremely stupid decision to start racing towards the place she was calling, this movie wouldn't have happened. Not to mention, how come this enclosure doesn't have a way to track the dinosaur it's holding? They have heat sensors, yeah, but there's no way to locate her via her tracking device. That seems like a pretty massive oversight. Not to mention Owen and the other guards wandering into her pen for some reason. All they do is look at the scratch marks that the Indominus left on the wall. Scratch marks that they could easily see from the observation window. I can only assume that these guys really wanted a Darwin Award the old-fashioned way. That is the only reason I can think of for why they would just wander into her pen. Why else would you do that before you're even sure that she's escaped? If it wasn't for this series of stupid decisions, this movie would not have happened. The plot depended on these characters all having lobotomies before the film even started. Chapter 10. In conclusion to the video that you are watching right now, Jurassic World is a very stupid movie. The actions that the characters take are stupid. The way the park is designed is stupid. Heck, I haven't even touched on this guy's stupid mission to, like, militarize velociraptors. Yeah, use wild animals in war. That'll work out great for you. It's so hard to take this movie seriously with its layers and layers of stupidity. Sure, you can just turn your brain off and have a good time, but why would you not just watch the first film instead? It's not flawless, yeah, but it respects your brain cells, and its effects have arguably held up better than the effects here. It's no wonder why I haven't watched this movie in over a decade. I'm putting it back on the DVD shelf, and I can't imagine that I will ever pull it back out again. Chapter 11. When will it end? Jurassic World was a pointless reboot to a franchise that has been pointless ever since its second entry. And because it made a lot of money, it had 2 more sequels following it. Fallen Kingdom is so dumb that I honestly consider it to be a so bad it's good movie. And while I haven't watched Dominion, from what I've heard, it's not much better. The last one promised to be the last entry, the end to the series that already had an end back in 2001. Look, we all saw through this. These movies made way too much money for them to simply stop making them. At the same time though, I don't think any of us predicted just how soon they would reboot the reboot. I am not going to go see Jurassic World Rebirth. From the trailers, it appears to be a film about a group of people exploring an abandoned island filled with dinosaurs. Wow, never heard that one before! Truly, when are they gonna stop making these movies? I'll tell you when they stop making money. And looking at these numbers, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Chapter 12. I'm sad now, and I'm done. Thank y'all for watching all the way to the end, and until next time, goodbye y'all.